going to carry on with the comparison video today. I've been out doing some wildlife photography this morning and the sun has just started to come up now and it's hitting the top of this fell here. And in the last video that I did on the close-up photography, Keith asked for a comparison between focus stacking and like a small aperture. So I've got some photos here. What I've done is I'm going to pick out my favourite aperture. I'm not going to show that bit because we've already done that and it's kind of boring. But for the focus stacking, he asked that we use 5.6, and what I've done is I've basically focused 1 point, put it up 6, focused, put it up 6, focused, and so on. And so we should have a picture here, 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 and here. But basically what focus stacking is you take a series of images and you take all the sharp points from each one and then stitch them together in editing software. I do it sometimes. It's not my favourite technique, but it'll be good to compare the two. And if I've done it right, there is some deer up on the top, so we should be able to pick those out. I almost forgot as well actually. The setup for this is 5D Mark III, so full frame sensor, using a 24-70 at about 65mm. Got a polarizer on and a 2-stop soft ND grad. So use the same setup for each picture. Also use the trigger release to remove any camera shake. It's on a tripod. Not sure what else you need to know. It's been a couple of weeks since I took these photos, but I've pulled them up onto the laptop now, and we've got the F11 photo here. This is what I ended up choosing out of the small aperture photos. And then we got the 5.6 photos here. I have gone ahead and stitched them all together. I'll quickly run through that in a minute, but we'll have a quick run through these photos. One thing before I start this though, I have slightly messed this up and I haven't got all the photos for the stack that I need, which I'm a little bit annoyed about because I thought I'd overdone it on the day and we'd have everything, but the grass in the front isn't quite in focus. I'll show you that in a second. But I'm also sort of glad that's happened because I've had that problem before and it's one of the downsides of doing focus stacking, and it is that this is possible. So with this one, this is the first in the series, and this is one of the foreground photos. I used the autofocus on the camera and I chose the lowest point I could get to. Then I focused on these rocks in the stone wall here, but it's meant that this area here isn't in focus. I didn't really consider that this wouldn't be in focus because I think the smallest I normally go to is F8, and if I focused here I'd imagine that would be in focus too, but it isn't this time, and it's not ideal, but it's something to learn from. So the stone wall is in focus, so is the grass, and then this one starts to fade away with this stone wall here. Then as we make our way through the photos, that stone wall is coming back in. Also between the photos the sun rose. It's only a few seconds, but you can see how the sun is changing on this horizon here. Not horizon, on this bit here. But then these last photos, the trees are in focus and so are the rocks. And then I think the last one, the last one has the rocks in focus. What I've done with these is I've taken all of those and I've brought them into Photoshop. What I've done with these is I've taken all of the files, and you can go edit, and auto align the layers. And what that does is it takes all the images and finds some like common points in the photo and it lines it all up, and it does a pretty good job of it, to be fair. And it just means that when you start stitching them together, that the stone wall lines up and anything that's in the photo lines up. Photoshop's also got auto blend layers. I don't think that does a very good job though, and it tends to be hit and miss, and it'll blend out of focus areas in where it's not meant to be. So I've done it all manually, and I've just added layer masks, and you can see there that I've labelled all these so that it's easy to recognise which one's which. And this is the rocks at the top, and it's just getting this area here. So I've gone through, blended all of those together, and we are left with this file here. It does cut off a little bit of the picture, and you need to crop in afterwards, but for this example it's not changed too much on the edge. So the other thing I've noticed is that the F11 version is a little bit darker. So these are raw files, but I'm just going to bring this up a little bit just so it's a bit of a side-by-side comparison. That looks fairly close. It's still a little bit darker, but be good enough for this. So we'll compare these two. So we've got the focus stacked one on the left and the F11 one on the right. The right hand side is sharper, but I'm going to put that down to user error and say that's my fault. If I manually focused down here to begin with, this would have been sharp. So that's a +1 for the F11. And then I don't think there's really much difference between the two. I'd possibly say the F11 one was sharper, but there's not much in it. And then as we make our way through, it's hard to tell with grass, but that looks good on both of them. Then the stone wall, both of those are sharp. I think I'm just going to look for things that are bad. That all looks fine to me. All the grass looks fine. Rocks look fine. There is a slight difference in the light, but that's just because of the time between the photos. And then with the stone wall, maybe the focus stacked one is a slightly bit sharper. Not much though. Then the rocks look just as good. The trees look just as good. There's nothing that's sticking out as bad on either. There's no detail in the sky in this day. And then up on the tops, there's a deer. It's a little bit soft on the top, but it's quite soft on this side when you zoom in that far. I'd probably say this side is sharper at the back. Those rocks look sharper there than these rocks here. Personally, I'm not sure I'd be that bothered about that though. Can we see any deer? I was hoping we were going to get some deer up on the tops. That would have been pretty cool, but it looks like they're all blended into the rocks and all the grass. But that's quite fun to compare them. There's pros and cons to each. With the focus stacking, it was sharper at the back, but it took a lot more editing and more time. And the downside of it is there's room for error. This bit is my fault. I'm going to take the blame for that. But when I was taking it, I was trying to get it so that the light was the same back here, and I was trying to do it as quickly as possible, and when I did it, like I said before, I was taking a picture here, moving it up 6 points on the focus, taking it, and then repeating that. And I was convinced I was have too many photos for what I need, but I guess I didn't. And then with the F11 one, this is pretty sharp all the way through, and it got done in one photo. And other than making that a bit brighter for the video, I haven't really had to do too much of that so far. I think I might try and do this with a more complicated scene where there's things up close and far away, maybe a waterfall, and then there's moving parts too, and see how well that stacks together. I'll keep an eye out in the woods next time I'm out and see how that compares. But both techniques work. I personally choose the F11 one in this kind of situation, but all comes down to personal preference. I hope you found this helpful though and learnt from my mistakes. I still haven't learnt yet, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I've made that mistake a lot of times before. So I guess you need a bit of a technique for if you're doing it. I'm not used to shooting at 5.6, so if I was to do this again, I'd probably go F8 because I'm used to that, and I've got a rough idea of what's going to be in focus and out of focus, and I think I'd get better results from doing that. Because if I focused here at F8, I'm 99% sure this would be fine, and I could probably do it in 3 photos. Maybe get a photo here, then take a picture where it's flattening out here, maybe do that stone wall and one at the top. So 4 pictures, just choosing the points more rather than strategically going through it. But that's how you learn, and yeah, I'll see you next time.